Mike Conley got into the All-Star game, which we mentioned, and it got me thinking, did he deserve it? Did Mike Conley truly deserve it? And I think he did, but not because of his play alone. I think he played just well enough to warrant being extended the olive branch because of everything he's done for his team, because of everything he's done for this league, because he's never been there. I don't think Mike Conley gets the All-Star game nod from the commissioner if he's not a seasoned veteran with a perfect reputation and on the number one team in the NBA. I think if you take away any one of those three, actually, he doesn't get in. If he's not like a seasoned vet that's been right on the fringe every year for years, I don't think he gets in this year. If he's not on the number one team in the NBA, I don't think he gets in this year. If he had a reputation of being a dirty player or gets a lot of technical fouls, I don't think he gets in this year. I think those things greatly contributed to him getting in to the All-Star game. So I looked up the guys that got snubbed, and there was a lot of guys that had beef. There's a lot of guys. There's Jamal Murray, DeMar DeRozan, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Brandon Ingram, even Jordan Clarkson on the Jazz. Six-man, De'Aaron Fox, Ja Morant. So many guys that were right there in the Western Conference that could have taken that additional spot that opened up when Devin Booker went down. The guys that had the biggest beef, in my opinion, are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, DeMar DeRozan, Brandon Ingram, of course Mike Conley, and then Jamal Murray. And so for those on YouTube, you'll be able to see these stats. Those listening, I'll do my best to describe them in an easy-to-understand way. But I went through and I looked at all their stats and put them all side by side here. And among these guys, Mike Conley averaged the fewest points, the fewest rebounds, the fewest blocks. Not that that matters that much for most of these guys, but he was actually the fewest in a lot of these traditional stats. But he was number one in steals, number one in 3-point percentage, which we obviously understand, having him finish second to only Chef Curry in the 3-point competition. But then you get into these like deeper stats, the more analytical ones, defensive related, how you're really affecting the outcome of the game, what it means for your team, for you to be on the floor versus when you're not on the floor. In his real plus minus, which again takes in offensive possessions, defensive possessions, and how you're playing defensively, offensively, contributing on the floor per 100 possessions, and it says, what is your true plus minus? What's the real impact you're having on the floor? And Mike Conley is actually 11th in the entire NBA in that category, 11th. In defensive win shares, he's 4th, but really it's 2nd because two guys ahead of him haven't even hardly played. They've only played a couple of games. So LeBron is actually number 1 in defensive win shares. Mike Conley is 2nd in defensive win shares. And then Mike Conley's team is the best in the NBA. And opponents shoot 6.1% worse when he defends them than they do when anybody else defends them or when the average other guy defends them. And so Conley defensively is far and away the best of this group. Then he's the leader of the best team in the NBA. And then he's still averaging 16.1 points, 5.7 assists, 3.5 rebounds, shooting 42.2% from three, and 83% from the foul line, 44% from the field. So he's just good enough in all those categories. And when you take in the leadership stuff, you take in the defensive stuff, it's like, yeah, this guy is the nod. But man, if you're DeMar DeRozan, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is 12th in the NBA in PER. 12th, didn't make the All-Star game. DeMar DeRozan, 13th in PER, didn't make the All-Star game. And he's on a team that's in the playoffs right now in the West. They're 7th in the West, the Spurs are. But guess what? His real plus minus is a minus. So his real plus minus on the season for a team with a winning record is actually a minus. His team scores fewer points and gives up more points when he's on the floor than when he's off. So you look at the real plus minus, Jamal Murray was the one that had beef. Jamal Murray, 21-15, the Nuggets 6th in the West, so they're also very much an all-star, a playoff team. His PER is 26th in the league. Mike Conley's is 20th. Brandon Ingram, by the way, is 14th. So Gilgeous-Alexander, DeRozan, Ingram, 12, 13, 14 for PER, and none of them made the All-Star game. So it's not just Devin Booker that got hosed. It's not just Mike Conley. Like, there's so many guys that are on the fringe. It's kind of like the college football playoffs. There's so many teams that could be like, we should have been in. And so then they expand to 4, and they expand to 8, and it's like, they could expand to 20, and there'd still be teams 21 and 22 that feel like they have beef, and they have a real argument. But to me, Mike Conley was deserving because of his actual impact on his teammates and his impact on the game. But again, I don't think he gets in if not for the squeaky clean reputation, being a seasoned veteran it might very likely be his last chance to be an All-Star, and the fact that he's on the number one team in the NBA. I think those were the three things that really pushed him over the top. But to defend him, look at defensive win shares, look at real plus minus, look at his opponent's field goal percentage, and his PER is 20th in the league. There was more than 20 All-Stars, so 20th in the league, he should be in there. So congrats to Mike Conley.